Let's also tell you, meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, why this is such an issue of concern. Because there was a Delhi police crackdown on protesters on repeated days, whether it was Monday onwards, whether Tuesday, Wednesday. There are multiple incidents where clashes have taken place. But there have been multiple debates that have been sparked over whether the police, the RAF, who were pressed into service, whether they used excessive force to curb the protesters. Now, there are multiple videos which are now doing the rounds on social media. Times now can't vouch for the authenticity of these videos, unfortunately. But in these videos, you see certain security personnel who are using what appears to be pellet guns. These protesters and even some of the political parties in opposition are now claiming that the police used pellet guns to curb protesters, something that has not happened in the national capital earlier. Remember that these pellet guns can cause serious injuries, can even lead to permanent vision loss. We've seen this happen in Jammu and Kashmir if the pellet strikes the eye. And this is why the alleged use of pellet guns is concerning and certainly a huge talking point. Now, here's what the Congress party has said and its leaders have stated so far. Use of pellet guns is the height of brutality. Fix political and administrative accountability is what Manish Tiwari of the Congress party has said. Security forces allegedly used pellet guns. Videos show the use of pump-action guns. There's great risk of permanent vision loss is what the UP Congress has posted on social media platform X. However, the Delhi police has on record denied the use of pellet guns, not once, not twice, but at least on 6 separate occasions. Here's what the Delhi police has said on its social media platforms. Claims that Delhi police used pellet guns are false. The Delhi police does not possess pellet guns. Pellet guns were not used in the ongoing protest. Public are requested not to share misleading info. However, Times Now spoke to one such victim. In fact, we interacted with this person. He did not want to be identified. He's currently hospitalized, and he maintains that the pellet guns were used on protesters, and he himself has suffered multiple injuries. Listen in to this particular sequence.
There have been series of questions which have been raised that whether the pellet guns were used or not. I'm joined with one of the victims in this case. We are not going to show his face, obviously, because his privacy is very important. But let me show you the kind of injuries which has been there. These are the small wounds which has happened because of the pellets which have been used, and the kind of scary thing which has been there is very alarming. Times Now is the only channel which has managed to, but we are certainly respecting the privacy of the victim in this case. He's a professional, he's a young professional who had gone there to be in support of the student. Let me once again show you. There have been hand injuries also. And,
no, there's no hand injury.
No hand injury. But the kind of pellet wounds, if you allow me, have been there, is under question, where the authorities have been asking that is this a pellet gun or not. But when you reached here, I'm not going to show your face. When you reached, what was the kind of shape of? Okay, fair enough. So 30, we are respecting this privacy, but on the usual, we have shown that what is the kind of injury which has been there.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is not by any means to say that the police have an easy job. There are enough videos which also suggest that the police have been at the receiving end of violence on behalf of certain protesters. There are clashes that have erupted on multiple occasions during the student protests in Delhi. Even yesterday evening, there were situations where police personnel were injured after confrontation near Jantar Mantar. Chaos was witnessed on streets. Protesters and security personnel were caught in tense face-offs. And Delhi police says that several personnel, including ACP Connaught Place, Vivek Bhagat, were injured after stones and bottles were allegedly hurled at police and RAF personnel.
हम जैसे ही आगे चल रहे थे तो हमने रियलाइज़ किया कि आगे वाले स्टाफ्स पे पानी की बॉटल्स फेंकी जा रही हैं और होर्डिंग्स और एंटी सोशल स्लोगन्स रेज किए जा रहे हैं पुलिस के खिलाफ, और उनमें से एक को भीड़ ने ओवरपावर कर लिया। तो उसके सिर से खून निकल रहा था, पूरा मुंह खून से सन गया था। तो उसको वहाँ से रेस्क्यू करने के लिए मैंने इंटरवीन करने की कोशिश की। भीड़ बहुत ज़्यादा थी, बहुत ज़्यादा उग्र थी, उन्होंने मेरे को भी ओवरपावर कर लिया। और उसके बाद फिर हर मोमेंट पे बॉडी इम्पैक्ट्स चालू हो गए, इसमें लात थे, घूसे थे, डंडे थे, इवन नुकीली ईंटें भी थी। पुलिस वालों को स्पेशली टारगेट करते हुए उनको आइसोलेट किया गया और उनके ऊपर हमला किया गया।
And now we're going across to Mr. Harish Salve, top legal eagle, who's joining us at this moment. Mr. Salve, thank you so much for speaking to Times Now, sir. And let me, in fact, ask you, with the continued agitation that's taking place in the national capital, the focus is back on protest laws in India, not to mention what's being termed as police excesses. To begin with, can you tell us about the law in terms of when a peaceful protest stops being protected in the free speech and becomes a lawful target for police action?
First of all, let us be clear. The often misquoted right of free speech does not include the right to put public order in jeopardy. It's well settled. In fact, Justice Holmes, the famous American judge in the US, and in the US, there was no exception to free speech. Here, 19.2 has exceptions to free speech. In the US, it said there is a right to free speech. That's all. There was no exception. And Justice Holmes said, free speech does not mean screaming fire in a crowded theater. So public order exception to free speech is already there. There are areas which are demarcated at high-risk areas. We live in very troubled times. There are areas which are demarcated as high-risk areas. And the citizenry's right to protest clearly has to be in harmony with rules of public order. And if public order requires that certain areas are inviolable, then they have to follow those rules. So this new fashion of trying to break into parliament every now and then, I'm sorry to say, in a country which has suffered a serious parliament attack and the ability to take things for the possibility of things spinning out of control if large crowds are allowed to enter those areas. Based on that, if the government has declared certain areas as beyond free public egress, then those rules have to be respected. These are young students, presumably. I don't want to comment on who's behind these. Yeah, that's why I'm saying presumably. Well, they must learn to respect the rules of the country.
Right.
And that's the first bit of education. Nobody takes away their right to protest, but it has to be in a context. And one thing is that the police are doing their duty. If you go and break barricades and there is a fracas on the streets, then it becomes very difficult to carefully weigh and balance whether the police committed excesses or you committed excesses in breaking a few heads of policemen. That's a matter which will be investigated. I don't want to comment on it because it's a matter which has not come up for the first time. There have been a number of allegations, number of inquiry commissions, people have gone into it. So that will be investigated, and if the police has committed excesses, they'll pay for it. But the fact is, people took it in their hands to break the law. That should never be forgotten.
Right. While one can understand your argument about parliament premises, of course, and there have been attacks there, but what about areas like Connaught Place, which is a commercial area? And what about Jantar Mantar, for instance, which is a designated protest site?
Nobody beat up people at Jantar Mantar. What I am given to understand is where they tried to break the barriers, that's where the fracas started, right? Nobody said that they cannot sit at Jantar Mantar.
No, but if police claim that they acted to prevent disorder, there must still be a minimum legal threshold that must be satisfied to take physical action, because there's not just videos put out by Delhi police, but also those that we are now seeing visuals in terms of alleged excessive force being used on peaceful protesters.
See, I don't want to comment on this, and I don't want to comment on selective videos. I've equally seen videos on news channels where policemen have gone with their head covered in blood. Have you seen those videos?
Yes,
they are not human beings. They are not one of us. Or are they alien force which has come from Mars and we're entitled to beat them up?
No, definitely. I mean, any kind of violence has to be condemned. But the point is, what about use of pellet guns, shock patterns in the national capital? Where does the law stand on use of those?
The law allows use of pellet guns because it is better to use pellet guns than to use live ammunition. You are breaking into a no entry zone is where the fracas begins. Speaking for myself, I find it very difficult to, and these leaders of these groups do it invariably. They want to break into a no entry zone so that there is disturbance and this kind of a thing happens, and then they cry wolf. I'm sorry, somebody must take responsibility for trying to break those barriers and enter into an area which is not permitted. And I've seen videos also on news channels. I am not willing to gamble on all those people who I saw in the video, or in fact, most of them, even being students.
But so what does it say about the situation that it exists, whether we call it about our society, our democracy, when forces, even though there are pellet guns are used, are still classified as non-lethal? But what does it say about the state of affairs at a time when forces stationed in historically troubled regions, like for instance the Jammu Kashmir region or parts of the Northeast, have practically stopped using these objects or these weapons? We are seeing them in action in the streets of the national capital.
I don't know whether they were used. Don't go by video cameras. Let there be a thorough inquiry. Secondly, the police will explain what they used and why they used it. I can tell you one thing, what little I know of having worked on both sides. There are strict rules which have to be followed. And if any policeman has broken the rules, he is in for very serious trouble with the law. There are strict rules to be followed. There are deployment rules to be followed. There are orders, chain of command orders, which are issued. And then alone, the degree of force is increased. And all that will come out. What you are today seeing is what has become very unfortunately the norm of the day, trial by media. People do this deliberately. A group of people attack. Newsreels are made, released all over the world. India has been given a bad face all over the world through Instagram, through YouTube, by people posting videos, selective videos, and trying to suggest that some sort of mayhem is going on in India. So the purpose has been achieved. These people, they want to make India look bad. You're doing it. I don't think students of India gain if India loses reputation.
Right. And Mr. Salve, when you say that you don't believe that all those who are protesting are students, do you believe that these protests then have been sort of hijacked, so to speak, by what's being said are lumpen elements?
I don't call them hijacking. I'll tell you what is this is my personal opinion, where I've seen this happen over and over and over again. The political parties are entitled to make use of anything which they can to embarrass the government. The NEET paper leak happened months ago. A fresh NEET has been held. The exams are over. The matter should be debated in Parliament, and anybody and everybody who has been complicit in this has to be brought to justice. No two views about that. Somebody has found that the monsoon session is about to start. This is the time to start a political movement based on the outrage of students. And I see that happening. I'm at a distance from India. I'm not on the streets. What I'm seeing is that happening from basis of what I watch on your channels.
Right.
Now, whether you call it hijacking or whether you call it sponsoring the movement or whether you call it running the movement under the label of students' protest.
But then can politicians, who are joining the cause the way that they have, be then termed as hijacking?
I see everybody, politicians that I dare say, politicians are not doing it out of the best of motive, is my view. Let me tell you why. I saw people from a political party which came to power in Uttar Pradesh on a promise that within 24 hours of coming into office, they will repeal the anti-cheating laws. And they did that. Public memory is short. So when these people come and cry about the sanctity of an examination process, I find it a bit rich. in the past, there have been exams rigged. No action has been taken. We have allowed this cancer to grow. We all know the problem. The problem is our colleges are not of requisite standard. There is a national exam held. Everybody is tried by one yardstick. So coaching centers have come up. Coaching centers compete with each other, and they are the ones who are resorting to unethical means. Large amounts of money are at play, etc., etc. We have done nothing. We have allowed this grass to grow under our feet. The time has come to sit back for all these people to put their heads together in Parliament, come up with strong laws to deal with this new menace, which every now and then, yesterday I saw a press interview by the BJP former president, who gave a list of exams which have gone wrong. So let us address this as a problem, as a concern for the students. We need now a strong law to address this. And that's the way forward. Breaking barricades at Janpath and walking to Parliament to ask for what? Resignation of a minister? I don't think if one minister resigns and the system continues, there's going to be any change or any help to the students. That's clearly a political agenda.
But sir, don't you think that resignations by the top brass will solve anything? Because the demand is of the education minister's resignation by these protesters.
How will it solve? How many people have resigned, and has the problem gone away? So governments have come into office saying we will repeal anti-cheating laws within 24 hours. I have fought a case decades ago in the Supreme Court of India when I was working full-time in India, where states, I think Maharashtra was one state, I think Tamil Nadu was another state, which applied to the Supreme Court saying, allow us exit from this national entrance test. Because how is it that students of our universities are first class, invariably get low marks than students from other universities? Because there are certain areas in India we knew. The leaders of those states used to say, invigilators, please help our students get good marks. Haven't we seen all that? Have we made a law to deal with it? No, we haven't. I think time may have come to nationalize all important elections, to make sure it's held under the oversight of a body created, which can make sure that the sanctity of elections is there. Otherwise, we are playing with the future of our youth.
Important point. But do you believe, sir, amongst a section that a situation like Bangladesh or Nepal, simply put, can arise over here, that a regime change, is it possible in today's India?
No, regime change in India happens only, up till now, regime change, even after emergency, happened only by the ballot. And unless by the ballot there is a regime change, it's not going to happen. What happened in Bangladesh, what happened in Sri Lanka, is something which I have no doubt in my mind, which America wanted. We are now playing into the hands of people who have possibly lost elections repeatedly and feel that regime change is the only way, through extra constitutional methods. And I'm sorry, if students are becoming parties to this kind of a exercise, the future of Indian students lies in economic prosperity. And no regime change ever brings economic prosperity. It only brings uncertainty.
Right. And finally, sir, before we let you go, what do you believe is the best means to resolve this? And this is not just about these protests. The issue of paper leak remains genuine. If there are injuries on all sides, how should accountability then be fixed?
Look, don't conflate two issues. There should be, there has been in the past, when the lawyers had gone on strike, a committee was appointed of a retired judge. He saw all the evidence of both sides, gave a strong report, and whoever are the delinquent police officers, if he finds excessive, it will be done. You remember Baba Ramdev's protests?
Of course.
Where Congress, when the UPA was in power, same story happened. You remember Anna Hazare's protest. UPA was in power, same thing happened. What do? They always appoint a committee. The committee goes into the entire evidence and gives a report, and action is taken against the police officers. But believe me, even if you hang all the guilty police officers, the problem of the integrity of the Indian exams is not going to be resolved by that. It has to be resolved by finding out what ails our system, where are the weak points, and how do we address them? The MPs who work on, who are paid salaries out of your and my money, us taxpayers' money, owe it to the country to sit in Parliament, to discuss this issue threadbare, to come up with solutions and to implement them.
All right, Mr. Harish Salve, former Solicitor General, thank you so much, sir, for taking the time out and speaking to us here at Times Now. And with that, it's a wrap on the briefing room this evening.